Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a storage room. That way, you have a way to store items and do long-term infrastructure for your world. So without further ado, let's investigate how we'd go about this. And a couple notes for this. If you're using a standard wooden pallet, then I'd recommend adding these blocks to it. It will make your job a lot easier. Then, from here, what you want to do is make sure that you have a pre-existing build to do this off of. Essentially, if it's not readily accessible, then perhaps it's not exactly the best place for it. But if both of those criteria are met, then get yourself a simple room for this. Nothing terribly complicated as of now. Basements work pretty good for this, and make sure that if it's a square room like this, that it's symmetrical. If there's anything connecting into it like this, then don't worry about those for now, since we need an entrance and exit a little bit later on. But the rules are that you need an area, and then you need a way to go into the wall. It doesn't have to be specifically going into the wall. I mean, if the floor was, say, here, then this would be fine. But I'm saying you need to excavate a decently sized chunk like this. And then, once you've done that, then you can start doing a little bit of actual storage. With an area now excavated, it's now time to add ourselves a couple of storage sections. And this is a little bit more complicated, because of course anyone can place down a bunch of chests, anyone can make it look at least decent if you know what you're doing, but it takes a little bit more effort to organize it, and that is the main purpose of this tutorial. So we have a bunch of logs down here, there's stripped variants here. I recommend storing their saplings and leaves in that section too. And then the rest for their wood products like planks, stairs, slabs, etc. And in order to make sure this is chest compatible, make sure you use upside down stairs angled like this. That way it looks nice and it allows chests to be opened. Place down some of your chests in here, and then this will allow you to put in a couple of things in here. I'd recommend doing the thing that you're building with for your storage first, say soul soil and brown concrete. Then I'd make a colorful tab, and then something for the nether. So we have soul soil here, maybe that could be soul soil, soul sand, and maybe blackstone potentially. It all comes down to what you're actively using. But essentially, make sure you have the infrastructure to finish the rest of the build before doing anything else. Once you've started construction of this place, inevitably you're gonna have to go back and forth for some resources. So it's time to get some infrastructure to go inside. Of course, simple ladders, staircases, whatnot will work. But if you want to use this as an extension of the gingerbread fortress build, then I'd recommend rounding off any floating segments you have like this. And then, remember the fact that if you cover powder snow and carpet, it still gives the fall damage immunity without sinking in or having to wear leather boots. To give a little example, I'm going to put myself in survival mode. And what do you know? No problems here. So, do that, and don't forget to include another bubble elevator, since bubble elevators are the fastest reasonable form of vertical movement for a base like this. So, start building like this, make sure you have the powder snow or another way to get up and down, and then once you're done with all that, then you'll end up with a way to get in and out of this while still having it incorporated into your floor. Along with that, a little thing you need to know while lighting up your room, if you're doing ceiling lights, do not place lanterns in front of chests. I made sure to use a fancy design here because placing it like this means it would get in the way if I ever needed some warped planks. So you can see the issue. Not to mention, it kind of disrupts the feel of the build, since you get to use so many different blocks in a coherent sense, since, of course, they're sorting blocks. With our ceiling now in place, well, there isn't too much to get from this, because unless you're following this very specific and niche tutorial that presumably I'm one of the only people on Earth to ever made one about that, then the ceiling is not going to be very applicable. But the general sense of what you want to get from it is 1. Play around with stairs and slabs, that's how you make anything go look good. And 2. Make sure it has a bunch of light. Because, of course, sometimes you have very similar blocks next to each other, like deep slate and cobbled deep slate. Want to notice the little differences in those. And not to mention, creepers. So always make sure that there's a bunch of light. From here, what you want to do is flesh out the rest of the storage system with your major blocks like endstone or other niche things like redstone. Maybe one for amethyst, blackstone, or you just look around to see what even exists in this game. Sometimes you'll realize that there are a couple more blocks than you remember. But once all that is in place, you're likely going to be left with either unsortables or things that do not have a block version like armor, gunpowder, etc. With our section here, and then the rest of our sections, then we have a proper area. I'm not going to add the chests mainly for visibility reasons and also, lag reasons and the fact that it would take a while when this video is already late. But still, we have ourselves a rainbow here, mainly because it's easy to remember the order of the colors, so that way you need a blue block, you know where it is, rather than having them all in a jumbled order. And then we have random blocks here, ice. If you have a transparent block, remember that transparent blocks can have chests under them and the chests will still be usable. So use that to your advantage in order to make a better storage system. Good example here is normal glass, where if I were to place a chest here, what do you know? I can open them. Of course, I meant to place a double chest, but the idea is still there. From here, maybe a to-do list, and then we need our bulk storage. So, netherrack and dirt are big ones, potentially cobblestone, really depends on what you're doing with your world. But once you have all those in place, then you need to go to your individual items that might not have blocks or don't necessarily need their own section. Bones, string, gold, emeralds, etc. You can place their respective blocks behind them, but you have to keep in mind, not every block will have its own suitable counterpart. But still, it's an interesting way to do things even if it doesn't work out for things like blaze rods. With your chests now in place, there's only one recommendation I have for storage, and that is an equipment chest. And that is pretty simple. You put random pieces of equipment in there. Since, of course, building an armory is a big deal, might as well relegate it to 4 chests if that's not an investment you're willing to make at the moment. Then, make sure you have ready access to crafting tables, some furnaces, make sure they look nice. And then go up top. Make sure that you didn't miss anything else. So, going through the rest of this base, do you have a safe room? Who knows, you might want one in case there's something like a raid. Enchanting, brewing, blacksmith, villagers potentially. All those things might be something you want to put in your storage room. Otherwise, this being empty is good for functional purposes. Even if it's slightly bland, still, of course, you can always place down whatever tables, chairs, aquariums technically, whatever random things you want in here. And then, if you're done with all that, then it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.